with geography and bioscience in 2008 from St. Patrick's College back then in Dublin City University, where she was also awarded a master's degree of education with first-class honors in 2017. Her master thesis focused on STEM and educational disadvantage, and she was awarded a postgraduate certificate with distinction in the 21st century teaching and learning from Trinity College in Dublin in 2019, 2 years ago. She's an experienced teacher, having taught in a variety of primary school contexts, and she currently is on secondment from her school in North Dublin and works as curriculum advisor with the Professional Development Service for Teachers. Her work with this Professional Development Service for Teachers involves supporting and enabling the professional development of teachers and school leaders with their own school contexts. And her PhD thesis and research focuses on teacher professional development in science, mathematics, and STEM from personal perspective. Her other research interests include primary teachers' engagement in cross-border collaboration between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, and the exploration of STEM partnerships between education and industry. So as you can see, we can be very curious for this last presentation, and I believe that the term last but not least fits very well here. So great. It's all yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And buongiorno, good day, everybody. And I just want to say before I begin, thank you so much to the organisers for the opportunity to speak with you here this afternoon at the end of what has been a very exciting day and a very enjoyable conference so far. So thank you so much. I'm just going to update the files that are showing here on screen. So if you could just please bear with me for a moment or two. I am just going to update because I think the copy of the slides that are up, I have a more updated version. So if people could just bear with me for one moment and I will upload that so that we have the correct.
Absolutely. Yes, that's very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it's building the suspense, right?
Wonderful. Thanks so much. So thank you, Tobias, for the glowing introduction. My name is Holden, and I'm a primary teacher from the Republic of Ireland, and I'm currently on secondment from my school to the Irish Ministry for Education. I'm also studying for my PhD with the University of Lincoln, and my supervisor, Dr. Nicholas Fatu, who has co-authored the paper I'm presenting here today. So our paper today proposes an emergent theoretical framework focused on how lesson study may act as a vehicle to foster teacher agency. And this framework derives from findings from a systematic review of literature. And this review forms part of my ongoing PhD study, which explores how I can support primary teachers in achieving agency through the lesson study professional development model. So in terms of my own positionality as a researcher, just to give you a little bit of background and context to this work, my study is grounded in my practice working in primary teacher professional development, where I've used lesson study as a school-based approach to professional development with teachers over the last number of years. And my study takes place against a backdrop of change in primary education policy and curriculum in Ireland, moving towards a learning outcomes-based curricula, where teachers are expected to teach subjects in an integrated and thematic way. And one of the biggest changes has been in the area of STEM. So existing literature would suggest that in order for any proposed curriculum changes to be enacted successfully and effectively by teachers, they will require a support toolkit which enhances their content knowledge, their agency, and their efficacy. And one such support which offers promise and hope is lesson study. So in terms of conceptual overviews, just to give you a brief synopsis, for those of you who are not familiar with lesson study, my paper here today, mine and Nick's paper, it draws from a broad conceptualization of lesson study as described by Catherine Lewis. And this process involves 5 steps. It's a cyclical process. This starts with identifying an overarching goal, which is derived from curriculum. And with the support of a knowledgeable other, usually an external subject expert, a group of teachers get together and collaboratively plan, research, teach, observe and reflect on a research lesson with a group of learners. Now, while much research on lesson study to date has focused on mathematics, it's a process that can be applied to any subject. In terms of agency, when I use the term agency, I'm referring to the ecological conceptualization of agency as described by Emmer Bayer and Misha, and more recently, Priestley and colleagues. An agentic teacher is capable of acting with purpose, with competence, with autonomy and reflexivity to bring about positive change within their own practice and within broader social contexts. So agency is considered to be temporal. That is, it's constructed from past beliefs, experiences, and knowledge. It's enacted in the present and oriented towards the future. It is highly contextual to individuals, and it is contingent on a complex interplay of individual actions within that broader social milieu. So lesson study literature, for example, recent work by Schipper et al. Have suggested that lesson study shows great promise as a possible mechanism to foster agency. But in terms of theory, it's not quite clear yet how this might work. So in order to dig deeper and explore this a little further, through a systematic review of existing literature, we sought to explore how and in what circumstances can lesson study enhance teacher agency in STEM. So in order to address this review question, a review protocol was developed. And this describes, I suppose, the terms, the sources, and the limits for the searching process, as well as specifying criteria for inclusion and exclusion. So following a process of identification, screening, and critical appraisal, 3,000 studies were narrowed down to 32. And these 32 studies were predominantly case studies, and these were selected to reflect the voice and views and lived experiences of classroom teachers. So the main reason for exclusion of studies was that they were either theoretical in nature or they didn't provide sufficient detail of the kinds of activities that the teacher participants engaged in. Other papers were excluded as they were not from the perspective of teacher participants. For example, one paper focused on the perspective of the facilitator. So the key information from each of the 32 chosen studies were extracted into a framework to allow for analysis. So a thematic analysis was conducted on the data from the included studies, and each study was examined for evidence. This evidence included direct quotes from the teacher participants and general study findings as reported by the authors of the studies. These data were coded inductively and deductively, and a number of overarching themes were identified. These were efficacy sources, agency enablers, and agency constrainers. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about these two in a few moments. In terms of limitations of the study, I suppose the first thing that could be considered a limitation is the narrative nature of data reporting, which could contribute to bias. This was ameliorated through the design and use of the review protocol, which I mentioned earlier, and the use of critical appraisal checklists for the various qualitative and quantitative data that was included in order to ensure transparency. A further limitation is that agency, as I said earlier, is contingent. So even if instances of agency were identified, would these necessarily translate beyond their original context? So from analysing those existing studies, it appears that lesson study contributes to agency in 3 ways: through pedagogical content knowledge, or PCK, through professional community membership, and through what's termed collaborative expertise. So I'll speak a little bit more about what I mean by these. So pedagogical content knowledge, or PCK, This relates to the way in which the lesson study activities contribute to teachers' knowledge. So, for example, during that research phase, teachers have the opportunity to examine research about a particular subject. Take, for example, fractions in mathematics. The second way is through professional community membership. This relates to the way the lesson study structured protocols help to create a socio-cultural learning space for teachers where they learn through engaging in critical reflective dialogue in line with the work of Lev and Wenger and Vygotsky and their theories of situated and socio-cultural learning. The third way is through collaborative expertise, where the teachers in the lesson study group bring a range of experience and expertise to the cycle. For example, teachers of different subject areas like language and science working together, or indeed teachers from two different schools working together. It was not entirely positive, however, in terms of the findings in relation to agency derived from lesson study. There were also some factors identified by the review which constrained agency in relation to lesson study. For example, bureaucratic leadership structures, where the lesson study was conducted in response to a performativity agenda. Another agency constraining factor identified was a lack of resources, particularly a lack of time. And it was interesting to note in the previous presenter's work that a lack of resources also emerged in their findings in relation to inquiry-based learning. However, these constraining factors are more to do with the broader structures and conditions where the lesson studies took place rather than the model itself. However, these would need to be attended to if lesson study is to be considered an agency enabler in applied contexts. So in terms of next steps, while this review and the resultant emergent framework has contributed to strengthening the theoretical connection between lesson study and agency, it is important to reiterate again that the achievement of agency is a process rather than a product. It is contingent and it is contextualized. However, the framework described in the paper is tentative and emergent. So my next steps will be to test it in the field as part of my facilitation of teachers' work. Thank you so much for listening and for your attention this afternoon. Please feel free to contact me via Twitter should you have any questions or if you'd like to know more about my ongoing study. And my final 2 slides just detail some references.
Thank you so much. Very good and very informative presentation. Yes, so I'd like to ask you guys if you would like to pose a question to Murray. I can see some people are typing in the chat, and I think that there have been some jump boards in your presentation that would be interesting to follow. So there's one question already coming up. Do you know what your test case or cases is or are going to be?
Yes, so I have started data gathering with a group of teacher participants who are involved in a cross-border lesson study between Ireland and Northern Ireland. It's a small-scale study, so that will be the first testing of this framework, and that study is ongoing at the moment. So I'm very excited to see what the findings are going to be from that, but as I'm just an individual researcher, I don't have the resources to do a large-scale study yet, but the excitement is building all the time in terms of this particular framework. So if there's anyone who would also like to test it, to feel free to do so. I'd be really interested to talk further with you on that. Thank you, Janelle.
Yeah. Any more questions? Or something that you would like to ask to the audience, perhaps?
I suppose I would be interested to hear if anybody in the audience has experience of lesson study and what their own perceptions of it might have been. It's quite a popular model of professional development across the world. However, it's used in lots of different ways in lots of different countries and contexts. So if anybody had come across it as a participant or has experience of facilitating it, I'd be interested to hear about their experience.
Yeah, has someone perhaps come across that already, or would like to share their experience? I know that it's sometimes a little tricky here due to technical issues with this big blue button thing. You always have to log into with your microphone in order to be able to activate it, right? So sometimes that can be an obstacle because most of you are logged in without microphone, and you always have to just activate it by relogging in.
Sorry, I feel like I'm like the question queen here. So I'm a big fan of lesson study. We're currently, and I love excellent work. I'm like, when is this ready? Because we need it, by the way. Get going. But anyway, so we're doing a lesson study that some teachers are doing some cross-disciplinary collaboration, and we're really enthusiastic to see what's happening. So we're just starting to do some data collection with, and these are both novice teachers. So we can use your framework whenever it's ready.
That's really exciting to hear, and I suppose lesson study is just taking off in Ireland too. There's some amazing practice going on here with mostly pre-service teachers. But the organisation I work for has been trying to get it off the ground since 2017, but it's very difficult to get funding, and that issue around resourcing and time for teachers to take part in these kinds of initiatives, it's a global issue, isn't it? It's a matter of getting the evidence together to show how powerful this is and how it can really, it's good value for money for policymakers too, and for those in charge of budgets. So there's some wonderful work going on in the UK. Professor Pete Dudley has been working there for a number of years, in London too. I'm sure you're familiar with his work. So yeah, it seems to be really, really popular, and hopefully your project will go really well. So yeah, we should keep in touch for sure.
Yeah, and thank you very much, Janelle, for posing the questions. I know that it's very interesting to most of the community here, and they are thankful for your contributions and for your questions because they don't have to pose them themselves. So thanks for getting in touch here. Would someone else like to pose a question or answer to the question Murray just gave? I believe that's not the case. You have a Twitter account, do you? Right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah. I've put my Twitter details up there, my Twitter handle. So if anybody has any burning questions that they weren't in a position to ask, or if something strikes them over the coming days, please feel free to contact me in that way, and I'll get back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. We will, and please also remember the Pixel Firenze Twitter handle and the hashtag that we're using for the conference. Perhaps you'd like to include this hashtag when tweeting about the conference, or when starting a conversation following one of the presentations. It actually doesn't stop snowing in the middle of Germany where I'm located at the moment. How is it at your place, Marie?
It's beautiful sunshine here, which is very rare in Ireland. We celebrated our national holiday on Wednesday, and it was the most wonderful sunshine, which never happens. It's normally a little bit of snow, a little bit of a lot of rain, and a little bit of wind. So it's wonderful in the middle of this pandemic that we can enjoy something nice here in Ireland. So that is my plan for the afternoon. I'm going to hopefully go out and enjoy the sunshine, because I know it won't last too long, Tobias. So
yeah,
we need
sure.
We need to.
Actually, the sun is already going down right here. We're 1 hour later at my place and at Roberta's place as well. How is the weather at Firenze, Roberta?
Definitely shiny.
No snow?
No, this year didn't snow, but maybe next year we will also be able to enjoy the snow.
Perhaps together at the conference, but it's a little late for snow in March at Firenze, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, we need to have the snow before the conference next year.
Very good. So thank you all for contributing to this session right here. If there aren't any more questions, you can also pose organizational questions if you'd like. I'd just like to wrap things up with my thank you to the organizers of Pixel, who did a wonderful job, as usual, which is not very easy for such an online event to have it structured that way and to keep things straight. And you did a very, very good job here. So thanks to everyone. And please, Elisabetta, give our thank you from this group and from, I think, the whole conference to the organizing committee and to everyone in the group. Roberta, you too. You did a very, very good job, and it was very structured and very inspiring. Thank you.
You did as well a great job as a moderator, and you, everybody, as speakers. So thank you, everybody.
Yes, I also would like to thank you all. Thank you, Tobias, for moderating. Thank you all for participating. It was another challenge for us to organize this online event, even though it was the third one. As you were saying, I really hope that next year we will be able to meet here in Florence, because even though I think everything went okay, we did what we were supposed to do. But I think that the added value of a face-to-face event is irreplaceable. And I personally missed the social interaction, the possibility to have lunch together, to walk around the city together, as we do when we can organize the face-to-face events. So thank you very much for being here this year in spite of the situation. And thank you for your contribution. Thank you for sharing and for contributing to improving innovation in science education. And I wish now I could say it's cocktail time, as we do at this time of the day on our second day of the conference, but this year we'll have to skip it. And I'm really looking forward to meeting all of you, hopefully in Florence next year. Thank you very much. Bye. And thanks to all the Pixel staff. As Tobias was saying, thank you, Roberta, Lorenzo, Andrea, everybody. Thank you very much. Hi, Anne. Looking forward to meeting you. You can maybe turn on your cameras if you want. It's now it's an informal. Bye-bye. Hello. It's nice
Thanks,
to see you. Thank you to all the moderators. Really, you did an excellent job. It was really, really helpful what you did. Bye. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you.
Elisabetta. Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye.